All right, thank you, men, for coming this afternoon. We're going to be talking about something that we know that us men, we are notorious for not talking about it. But I know that we are, us in this room, we're a bit different, we're special, and we want all other men to be talking about FGM as well.
What goes on with our young girls in an African context is cutting. Cutting really means to remove the clitoris. That's why it's called declitorization. So that's the real process. In men, the removal of the foreskin is what we call circumcision. And they happen parallel to each other in most African society.
Because you know there's 4 types of FGM, right?
Yeah.
And it was, the most severe type is type 3, infibulation. If a man was supposed to have the equivalent to type 3 FGM, it will cut off a third of the shaft of his penis and will be removed. That's just to tell how severe it is. Violence does not beget violence.
For men, we come from from religious perspective. For men, as a Muslim, it's mandatory. If you come from any culture, as you are a Muslim, you have to be cut. But for circumcised. But for women, it comes from social and traditional backgrounds.
What we call female genital mutilation is seen as a process of a rite of passage for women and girls in my country, which is Sierra Leone. It's part of a whole ceremony of trying to equip young girls to become women. So they're taught other things like how to run a home, how to please your husband, But then the downside of it is that they have this procedure performed where parts of their genitalia is removed and is seen as making them fit to be good wives.
But the main purpose of it, they do it back home, is to stop women, to cut the sensitive part, to stop women thinking about men. If you haven't cut your girls, and people in that area knows that maybe you educated outside and you come from somewhere, and you haven't cut your girl, and the people around you know that, they think that now your girls are doing something wrong in the family. And they shame you that why you don't cut. Even we have people came here and they educated about FGM, but this traditional stigma stuck in their head, so they smuggle their girls who born here, they took them back home, they cut them and they bring them down here.
Part of the cutting is to make you belong to your society. When you're not cut, you're like an outsider. But there's no validity in terms of the purpose it serves now, even in those days. But nobody was able to understand the harmful effects. So they thought because our great-great-grandparents did this, we have to do it. So there's a lot of informal learning, like schooling, but it's a bush school or informal schooling. There are a lot of good aspects which can be adopted, but that cutting is what perhaps we as men here are against.
Once the girls are cut, they are ready for marriage. And those communities that practice FGM, as soon as the girls are cut, then basically they are married off. So it's a main hindrance to girls' educational and economic development because they are seen as commodities.
In such a sensitive area, when it is caught, there is what you call the hardening of the skin, you develop keloid tissue. And that then restricts, it's meant to be an area that is elastic for childbirth, but then that starts restricting the elasticity of the area, which means childbirth is not as easy as it's meant to be. And then when you go to the communities that practice type 3, where they're not only caught, but they have to be stitched as well, you can see how it begins to affect in a very, very adverse way the health of women. Because you have associated problems like urinary retention, fistulas. It's every time you feel that pain, it tells you in your mind something is wrong. And to live, to go through life with that it's really, really, really bad. You know, in terms of the mental, physical health of the person or the individual.
When I talk about mental health, I start with the trauma that it starts from day one when it starts. The painful trauma people go through, the removal of the clitoris that is going to restrict that elasticity Victor was talking about. So during sexual intercourse is painful. So I've met women who fear sex. It's become like a phobia. When the man is saying, let's have intimacy, it's like a deadly object for them. And that can actually lead to divorce because the woman is not ready. Not that they are not ready because they don't get any pleasure out of it. So there is depression also that come with that. You know, because when you're not enjoying life, what do? You become depressed.
Do we know that women who end up having domestic violence? Why? Because they've got the sensitive part. The man is going trying to foreplay or to do everything, but he's struggling because the woman, they've taken all the sensitive parts to stimulate her, place is still dry, and the man will come out and say, "Oh, you've been cheating." Yeah, that's why he's cheating. Why is not? Why is so dry there? Yeah, should I just be to another man and end up fighting or beating the woman? Yeah, and maybe sometimes needs to divorce.
When we talk about the man aspect, how much are we men contributing for this process to go on?
And stigma is there that if I'm circumcised, I'm not going to marry a woman who has not gone through FGM.
Communities in Kenya who encourage FGM,
Yeah.
the men will sneak to the ones who do not, of course, go through the process. They go to those women who are not girls.
So they go to women who are not married.
Yes,
Right.
yes. So, and the women are saying, so basically then why do you insist that we get a cut? Because is it that we don't satisfy you?
Relationship for me is about the individual, the person, the inner being is what the relationship is about.
Yeah. How do we get more men to talk about FGM? To talk out against it or to educate them about it?
I come from a society where men do not engage in any form of discussion about, you know, the female genital mutilation or female cutting. It's seen as a taboo, and if you engage in it, you know, bad things will happen. Your stomach will swell up and you fall down and die. And for a legend to begin, it only takes for something to happen 2 or 3 times and people start believing in it.
For us here, I think we've been really working hard together to look at how can we influence it. Because if you look at the whole thing, if you ask anybody, they will say it's being done by men, yes, because we haven't said no to it and we're not making any effort to stop it. And maybe the benefit is us, because when we talk about sexual pleasure. But if I'm looking at my young girl is going to be sent and then this happened to me, I have a responsibility to stop it.
I never engaged in this kind of discussion until an elderly person in my community here in the UK, during the Dance Scott Summit, I was visiting them and we were watching the telly and they were reporting and, you know, the impact of and she just plotted it to say it's an absolutely useless practice. It serves absolutely no purpose. Everything that it is sold on is a lie. And I thought, wow, I must start talking.
But for me, the ceremony or like the training and all this bringing up to be part of the society, we can still maintain that, but just remove the cutting. Just forget about the cutting. Yeah. Bring something here, give up new ceremony. If that is the kind of certificate, I don't know for us to destroy everything about our culture, but we are destroying, like psychologically, we are destroying, and in health wise, we are destroying our people.
Yeah.
I think it is possible for girls to really to go through the passage of right without being cut. I know several schools in Kenya, they have been founded by several churches whereby girls are taken away from the village. It's like a refuge. They go there, Then at the age of 15, 16, they go through the whatever cultural education and they graduate without going through the knife.
And if we were to share that education with our people, then gradually we would make the change. It requires all our efforts.
So we need a lot of awareness raising, education, a meeting like this, maybe is putting our voice out there.
I think if African men oppose FGM, that's the end of it.
Let's make our voices heard and warn people to say this is not good for our communities.
Ba-da-bum, bum, bum. Ba-da-bum, bum. Ba-da-bum, bum, bum.